Hello and welcome to Shark Jets. I'm Skidvis. My Patreon member, thank you for subscribing. Andy asked how might I go about setting something up so that I can use the controller to spawn an object in a location I point at. And I feel I've gotten this question a few times, so I've decided to make a quick little video about it. Let's go ahead and get started. But first, make sure to like and subscribe. Alright, let's go. I am in Unity 2021 LTS, and I don't have anything installed other than VRIF. A link to that is in the description if you don't have it already. And let's go ahead and set this up real quick to make sure it's working on Oculus. All right. And so I'm gonna just bring in, well, I'm gonna put up a platform first. So I'll just use a plane so that we have some place to stand. I don't like the default look, so I'm going to pick a grid look here. Grid dark is fine. I'm gonna make it 3 by 1 by 3, so it's nice and big. All right. And now I'm gonna bring in the rig. So let's find our XR rig here somewhere. I'll just bring that in. Set that one off the ground so I don't fall through the floor. Everything stays the same. Okay, I'm gonna collapse everything here. I'm gonna add a script to the rig itself. So I'll just come in here and add a new component. And I'm gonna call that component Ray Spawn. Sounds like a cool superhero. All right, and then I'll go ahead and open that script up. All right, so here we are. I'm gonna go ahead and delete this start method because we're not gonna need it, and this comment. And now I'm gonna go ahead and just type in some stuff, and then I'll come back and explain it. All right, here we go. Let's try and break this down. I'm going to delete these 2 lines that are up here and not necessary. We're using BNG because that's the framework, the VRIF framework, so we need to have that at the top there. We're using Unity Engine because we are making a Unity game, right? We have a class called Ray Spawn. It is mono behavior. This is normal, typical stuff here. Then we have a serialized field, which means that it will show up. So once this reloads the script here. All right, so you see this origin and ammo. They show up here in the editor, and that's what that serialized field is saying. Since they're private, they shouldn't be visible, but this is saying go ahead and make it the exception in the editor. It's a serialized field, it's private, it is of type transform, and it is called origin. And then we have another one called, it's a serialized field also, private transform, and this one's called ammo, and this is what we're actually going to be spawning when we point at stuff. The next thing we have here is a private Boolean, and it is called is shooting, and that's going to determine whether we are holding down the trigger or not. And then let's skip down to the bottom real quick. We have a method called shoot. It does not return anything, so it is a void method called shoot. The first thing it will do is turn this shooting variable to true. So is shooting equals true. And then we're declaring an object of raycast hit, which will hold anything that we hit. And we're calling it hit. And then we're checking a raycast for a collision. So what this is going to do is it's going to shoot a straight line from a point, right? So we have a thing called origin.position. So we've got this transform at the top called origin, and that's going to determine where the raycast or the line starts from. And that's going to be our hand. So we're getting the origin position, and then we're saying the direction that we want that line to go is origin forward. So that means go in a straight line forward from wherever you start. And then if you hit anything, put it inside of that hit variable, and that's what that out hit means. And so we're saying if we do hit something, then go into this section here and do something else. So here we're saying if the thing we hit with that laser, with that raycast, is called plane. So if the transform has a name of plane, which it does, right? So our ground, is called plane. So if I change this name, I need to change that string in there too. But for this example, we're just going to pretend it's called plane. And so if we shoot a straight line and the thing that we're hitting, it has to have a collider on it, and the floor does, so the plane does. So if we are hitting something called plane, then we are going to create something. So we're going to instantiate, that's where we spawn something. We're going to instantiate a copy of whatever our ammo is, which we haven't set up yet. And then we're going to set it at the location of where that line is touching the plane. So that would be the hit.point. That's a vector 3 that has the x, y, and z coordinates of wherever that line is touching. And then finally, we're going to set its rotation, which in this case is going to be quaternion.identity, which means reset the rotation to its default, right? So it's not it doesn't have any spin on it or anything like that. So that's what that's doing. So it's pretty simple. We're going to set the shooting variable to true. We're going to see if the laser, the raycast, hits anything. If it does hit something that has a collider on it, then we're going to check if the thing that it hit was the ground, the plane. And if so, then we're going to instantiate or create another object at that location. All right, so then we go back up to the update method, which runs constantly multiple times per second. And so in this little update method, we're going to do a couple of checks, right? So VRIF gives us this thing called the input bridge. It lets us detect which buttons are being pressed at any point in time. So what we're going to say is if the input bridge instance, which is our reference to the current one, if the right trigger on the inputs is being squeezed, right? It's a float. It's going to give us a number from 0 to 1. So if it's being squeezed, it's going to have a number higher than 0. So in this case, I'm just saying if the number is greater than 0.5, and we're not currently shooting, right? Because in the shoot method, the first thing we do is we set it to shooting. So we can't, this prevents us from spawning like 50 things in a second, right? We don't want that many things spawning at once. We just want one per squeeze. If you just want to go crazy and just spray bullet hell, then you can just remove this part and you'll spray bullet hell. But if we're not shooting and the trigger is being squeezed greater than 0.5, then we'll go ahead and run this shoot method and spawn something at that location, right? And then all this is doing below that is resetting the shooting variable. So it's saying if we're not holding the trigger, right? If input bridge instance right trigger is less than 0.5, so we let go of the trigger and it thinks we are shooting, if this has been set to true, but we're not holding the trigger anymore, then we can go ahead and just say we're not shooting. So is shooting equals false. All right, so that's that. It's pretty quick, pretty simple. Now we just need to go ahead and set a couple things up here. So we've attached that script here to the XR rig. It doesn't have to be, it could be anywhere, but one thing we're gonna need is inside the XR rig, we've got the player controller, we've got the camera rig, we've got the tracking space, and then we have the hands, right? So you've got the right hand anchor. So that's gonna be our origin. We want it to be where the right hand is. So we'll just go ahead and, actually I'm going to, see if I can not screw this up. Okay, cancel that. I need to go one deeper. I want to be the right controller anchor. So I'll go ahead and drag that into origin. So now that's going to use our right controller as the point where that laser comes out of, that invisible raycast. And the next thing we're going to need is what our ammo is going to be. So I'm just going to create a cube here. All right, so this is just your standard everyday cube. I'm going to just put it 0.5 above the ground so we can see it. So there it is. It's just a regular cube. I'm going to move it out of the way, right? So in our XR rig, we want to put that cube over here. So we'll just drag that in to that. And now we'll be shooting cubes every time we squeeze the trigger. So let me save that and let's go ahead and try it out and see what happens. All right, so here we are. We're in the game, quote unquote. There's our initial block that we created, that cube that we're using as the template for ammo. And you can't see anything, and nothing's weird, right? Like I got my hands working around, and there's nothing that you can see. But if I point somewhere on the ground and squeeze the trigger, you'll get 1 cube. Now if I move over a little bit and hold the trigger, you still get just 1 cube, right? Because that's what that boolean that is shooting is doing for us. It's only going to let us shoot 1. And if I try to shoot again, pointing at this existing cube, nothing happens because it's looking for the ground. So if I move over to the side a little bit and click again, then you'll see it spins out, instantiates as many of these cubes as we can reach with our invisible laser. If I point at the sky, nothing happens. It has to be the ground. It has to be this plane that it's looking for to spawn this cube. So I hope this helps. The script for this will be on Patreon. And, you know, if you have any other questions, feel free to leave a comment. Join my Discord, become a Patreon subscriber, all that fun stuff. But definitely make sure to like and subscribe. I'm still Skidvis. I'll see you guys later. Peace out.